Ladies, this video is for you. We're all making a lot of life decisions on best case scenarios, and we're not really planning for futures where everything goes wrong, and it just doesn't make any sense. If somebody with a time machine had gone back like a decade ago and knocked on my door when I was in the middle of my Mormon stay-at-home mom life and told me that in December of 2024, I would be laying by a pool at an apartment complex with a sexy partner named Kevin with no kids, also no husband named Jake, I just would not have believed it at all. When my 20-year-old self got married, I said forever, and I meant it. And I thought he did too. And I didn't want to burst the romance bubble by asking questions like, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? So I spent 24 years of my adult life in denial, and that denial would eventually bite me in the butt. Not that I'm not happy. I have a beautiful life and I'm working very hard to rebuild post divorce. But me and my children have suffered unnecessarily, not just because we got divorced, but because of how my divorce went down. Specifically, because after 24 years of stay at home mom life, I was a financial dependent on my husband, and that husband fell out of love with me. So here I am the week before Christmas, and my kids are all up at their dad's house because it's his year according to our divorce decree. And I'm soaking up the 82-degree Arizona sunshine and also working. I work 7 days a week, by the way, if you haven't seen any of my videos before. And instead of going home to my big, beautiful house full of kids and my grandbaby and Christmas presents, I'm going home to a tiny apartment that honestly I can barely afford. Rent every single month is the single most stressful thing in my life. What's crazy about all of this is that I lived in a culture where nobody warned me that marriages could end and that I may need to take care of myself and my kids one day. Here's my story, and I feel like a lot of you will be able to relate to this. I got married, had babies, and dedicated my entire life to raising a family. And it was a lot of work. I spent 24 years raising 5 kids as a Mormon stay at home mom slash trad wife. And it was an endless variety of tasks like cooking and cleaning and doing all the grocery shopping and carpooling and getting kids to their gymnastics classes and diaper changing and childbirth and recovery from that and keeping a relationship going and finding and buying and decorating our homes and then sometimes building homes of our own and keeping them all tidied up and looking beautiful all the time and keeping myself looking beautiful so my husband would stay in love with me. The one thing that I can say for sure about my 24 years as a Mormon mom are this: it was a lot of work, but I didn't mind the work at the time because I was investing in building things. I was building my family. I was building my children's futures. I was building homes and building businesses and building a marriage that I thought was going to last for all of eternity. And I spent a lot of time and took a lot of risks in building that future. And as I worked, the goalpost that I was working towards that I kind of always pictured in my mind was where I'm at right now, which is grandmotherhood. I'm about to turn 51. I have my first grandbaby. My oldest is 26. My kids are all turning into adults. And this is the part of life that I was building all of that for. I remember me and my husband would talk about our plans for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and the next 20 years. And we were working really hard to have all our kids and raise all our kids and build our businesses and build our homes and build our retirement and our savings accounts and everything so that once the kids all started to leave home, we could kind of coast through our 50s and into retirement and have time to enjoy ourselves. I spent my whole entire adult life working so that when I became a grandma, I could go visit my grandbabies and maybe take a little time off here and there, although I knew that at 50 I wouldn't be able to retire yet. And instead, there was a fatal flaw in my plan that nobody warned me about and that I didn't see coming in my future. And that fatal flaw was this: all of the things that I was investing my time and my resources and the things that I was putting into savings accounts and all of the retirement funds, etc., they didn't belong to me. I didn't realize that the fact that all of those things were dependent on my husband being in love with me was putting the retirement accounts and my children's safety and stability and my ability to go see my grandbaby in jeopardy. At age 44, I would be faced with a sudden, unexpected divorce. And because I didn't have any income of my own, because I didn't have any education, any job skills as a 44-year-old woman with 4 children, completely financially dependent on me, I struggled and would very quickly face homelessness. Because my ex husband was smarter than me, he was able to withdraw all of our money from the bank before we had filed for divorce, hide that away, and I never saw a penny of anything that he withdrew. Because he had the money and I didn't, he was able to hire a really good attorney. And I was unable to even file contempt of court when he didn't pay those alimony payments, when he was getting into arrears and I was doing without. I was never able to fight him in court and win because I didn't have the money to even pay for rent and groceries and gas, let alone an attorney. I have to tell you something. The stay at home mom divorce is the worst of the worst. As I work with some family law groups and having been on social media for the past 4 years and hearing the stories of thousands and thousands of women around the world, and just sitting in court myself and hearing other people who are there before us for their hearings, women like myself who marry young, who are completely financially dependent on their husbands, who don't have their own credit, who maybe never had an education like me. I didn't have any marketable skills. I never had a career. I worked a couple of restaurant jobs before I got married, and then have so many children dependent on me who needed me, and then also not having any family support. It's not like I had some rich relative in my back pocket that could just bankroll me after divorce. It's the women like myself who've worked really hard to raise families and be wives and mothers, but who don't have income generating capacity. We're the ones who suffer the most. And I just wish that somebody had told me the risks that I was taking for myself and my children. And that's why I'm making this video for you today, because I want to tell you that a man is not a plan. He can be your husband, your boyfriend, your fiance, your lover, whatever you want him to be, but he is not your financial plan for the future. We have a 50% divorce rate in America. So when you say I do and give up your college and decide to start having babies, 50-50 chance he's not going to be there. Less than 40% of child support is ever paid. Less than 17% of spousal maintenance is ever paid. For me personally, after my divorce, my ex-husband paid alimony one time. Of the 5 years that he was supposed to pay, he paid me one full month and then a little bit here and there, and then he stopped and then he got rid of it. So I was left very much on my own, and I have always had full custody of the children. While you're in the middle of raising your children, you have a 70% of major catastrophe befalling your family. Those events are divorce, death, disability, job loss of the primary working spouse, um, illness, and then other things like wars, earthquakes, natural disasters, a pandemic like we just went through a few years ago. And the crazy thing is, we all fall in love and get married, and we plan our futures around 100% chance that everything's going to work out. And that's exactly what I did. I knew that because we had made those temple covenants at our Mormon wedding, that we were going to be in love forever. That's what he promised me, and that's what I promised him. And I knew that if we just ate our veggies and went to the gym as often as we had time, that we would live to the average age of 76 and 77. And yet, here I am at age 50 with $62 in my savings account, with no retirement, trying to get a career going in the middle of my life after having already spent decades building a future for myself that could be taken away from me like that. Ladies, a man is never a plan.